Morning, y'all. Having a look at the feed wagon. I was feeding last night, just going to bring my very last load. The sun had just gone down. Everything is as normal, but then bang! Sure enough, the big reel up in the wagon quit spinning. So you can see I still have a full load of feed in there. Surely what's happened is behind this plate, there are a bunch of roller chains. It sounds to me as one of them has busted. So I'm gonna blow this thing off and zip these nuts off, and we'll see what's going on inside. You never want to give yourself any unrealistic expectations of what things are like to work on, so with something like this, it's always a good idea if you use at least 2 different sizes of nuts. Alright, so as I suspected, the big chain here, this drive chain, this is what drives the large reel. You can see it's snaked off down here rather than completing its course down here. There's a shaft, PTO shaft goes through here, and then there's a sprocket down in the abyss here that this would roll on. So not completely unfamiliar territory here. You can see this has been fixed a few hundred times by the looks of it. This, by the way, is my pro work right there. Thank you. What I'll have to do is just get some gloves here so I can dip down in that oil and find the other side of the chain. And then I'll just bring it around this tightener and find, hopefully I have quite a few roller chain parts lying around. Extra chains, half links, breakers, etc. Always a good idea. So I'm going to see, I should have a half link or whatever it's going to take to repair it. I'll see when I get it out of the oil here what it looks like. Alright, so I was able to find, I've got a couple of different options for repairing this chain. We do keep a lot of this kind of stuff on hand just for this exact reason. I'll get in there and see what's going on. I have my shoulder length OB gloves. Pretty much any day you got to put these things on, no matter what you're putting your arm in. It's probably would be a better day if you didn't have to do that, but here we are. So anyway, get in there and get that chain pulled up. We'll get it repaired. Okay, so I'm just having my initial look at it. You can see on the one end of the chain we just have a loose end. So down in the other half here, we must have at least pieces of a broken link. So let's see what I can find. I'll get it pulled up here. Well, no, really. I mean, in someone's defense, they did put oil in it. Oh, this totally explains why the brakes don't work. Okay, so at the other end, my gloves are falling off here. Finally, I found the other side here, but there's nothing there. So that leads to the obvious solution between the two I chose, which is that full link. Just put one pin in here, one pin in the other side, and it'll be back together. Hopefully I'll be feeding within an hour or so. It's not that cold out here, but that oil is cold on my fingers through these gloves. Oh, come on, just cooperate. Why has it got to be such a struggle? Always such a struggle. Here's the busted piece. You can see it snapped off right there, and the other bit is still in the abyss, so I'll set that out of the way. I want to make sure we don't get any contaminants in here. There's another piece. Yeah, I also just noticed that I was missing this spring, and I found that amongst all of the junk too. So it does look like it's stretched a bit, but obviously not broken, and I think I'm just going to put it right back in service. You know, the real key thing here is just to have another person, but I don't have another person today. It's just me. Oh, for real. Okay. Okay, just had to tap on it a little bit. If you've never worked on anything with roller chains, these things can be kind of finicky, man. Like my other sided plate. Of course, the best part about using shoulder length gloves is that they're really thin, and so sometimes you might as well just not have even bothered. It's all over my jacket anyway, but I guess at least I saved my sleeves, so. Try a new flavor of glove to see if I can finish this project up. These will stay on a little better. Some of these, of course, are riveted on, so it doesn't need to be enough space to put a pin in. These don't exactly fit without some convincing. As my grandfather used to say, sometimes you just gotta talk to it a little bit. There. Okay, so even with this C-clamp on there, these things is just so tight, I can't get these cutter pins in there. So if you saw earlier, I was bragging about my usage of an old nail. That's what I'm going to do here. After all, the point here really is just to try and get anything in this hole that'll allow the link to stay together. So the pressure is not necessarily going to be outward. So for instance, the nails I was pointing out earlier, and I'm showing you now, these ones, just a plain small nail. I'll just bend them so that they don't get in the way, and also so they don't scrape up against anything else. And so far, in the other instances that I've used these, it's worked out just fine. So I hope the same will be true here. So in the end, I just found a smaller cutter pin, and every time I try and use a nail on this side, it just bends. So I guess it'll be extra strong because on one side I have a nail, and on the other side I have a cutter pin that's much smaller than the one that you're supposed to use. I mean, just tell me, where else have you ever seen such marvelous beauty? Time to put her back together. Gotta get the spring on. Gonna put a little more oil in this bath and see if there are any other random parts and junk in here. And then we'll finally be able to go to work here. Okay, short while later, I have everything is pieced back together. I put some more oil in there. The grass lubricates it better, so that's good that that's in there. I generally just use whatever I can find. I mean, I think as long as there's some oil on there. I've actually got a big 50-gallon drum of 1540 from probably the 1970s, I'm guessing. That's one of the flavors that's in here. There's my neat job there. I'm gonna zip the nuts back on here and clean a little bit of the feed away from the big reel. And then I'm going to go and unload this load of feed, hopefully without any incident, and then it's already time to feed everybody again. So off we go. Okay, well, the worst part is always in this back corner. So I don't know if you could tell, it was packed really tight. So mostly just broke it loose, shoveled some towards the front, and then right underneath where I'm sitting is the discharge chute right here. So I'm hoping maybe if I have the chute running right away when I start the PTO and these reels start moving, it'll stay loose long enough to unload some of this so that it won't pack so tight again. If you aren't familiar, these things do have spring-loaded tubes, so as they go around, if the feed does get tight underneath, it's supposed to have some give to it, but of course if it still gets packed beyond the spring allowance, then of course something's got to give, and that's what happened last night. Is that chain bore the brunt of it. So I think we should be good to go now. I'm going to fire up the 3155 and we'll go around and feed a pen of heifers. Okay, we're going to see if it works. The augers are hydraulic, so I can just start them like that. And then I'm going to open the door before I ever even turn on the PTO. See if I can clear a little bit. And then I'll switch on the PTO after a couple seconds. Hopefully it stays in one piece. So far, so good. Well, fortunately the fix held together. Got a pen full of happy heifers behind me. Just need to be more careful. You know, put too much in the wagon. That's why it broke. Nothing wrong with the wagon, just user error. So it is beautiful out here. Since I started, it's warmed all the way up to 30 something, and compared to what it's been, man, that feels like summer. Glad to have you all along. Hope to see you next time. I'll chat at you later.